And what a day. We are live from the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York on a beautiful day. And in just 5 hours, the dreams of 60 aspiring basketball players will be fulfilled as they hear their names called on the stage in that building and officially become a part of the NBA family. Hi, everyone. A day of dreams coming true in so many ways, and we are excited to welcome you into a very special NBA Today. I'm Cassidy Hubbard, filling in for Malika Andrews, who will be making history tonight by becoming the first female to host the NBA draft. Kudos to her, of course. And I am joined by 13th overall pick in the 2001 draft, Richard Jefferson.
Should have gone higher.
Too low. Yeah,
should have gone higher.
The 10th overall pick in the 2013 draft.
Should have gone lower.
Should have gone lower.
CJ McCollum. And the steal on the 108th pick of the 19th
Fact.
Should have gone 107th.
Jay Billis.
Yes.
And, of course, the host of the NBA podcast. And our number one draft pick.
The third draft pick in my own three-person family.
Yeah, that's fair.
you guys are all top draft picks in my book.
And you say that like you believe it.
What, TV. Entertainment. Let's get straight to it. This morning, on our very own ESPN senior insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, reported this. As teams board finalized today, the 1, 2, 3 of the NBA draft is increasingly firm per sources. Jabari Smith to Orlando, Chet Holmgren to Oklahoma City, Paolo Banchero to Houston. So, Jay, I want to start with you. Does this feel like the right order for these three prospects?
It was for me. I had Jabari Smith number 1, followed by Holmgren, and then Banchero. I don't have a board. I just have a list on an old legal pad. But, yeah, I think Jabari Smith is the best prospect. But it's not by that much. I mean, it's a tough call between he and Holmgren because Holmgren is a different kind of player. 7 foot tall, 7 foot wingspan. He's not a low post player. He's a perimeter player. Shoots 40% from 3, and he's got some kind of baby Giannis in him. He can grab a defensive rebound and bring it up, go behind his back, pass it. He can shoot it, and he can get all the way to the rim and finish with either hand. He's a big-time shot blocker, shot changer. And you'd think with that body that offensive players could get into his chest and knock him back, but he does a great job of keeping his body away from contact and still blocking shots. I think he's got a chance to be a great player, but I just favor Smith because of his shooting ability. It's 6'10", and then he's really good defensively. He can guard multiple positions, and he really takes a lot of pride on the defensive end.
Richard?
No, I agree. When I've been asking people, because, again, I haven't watched as much college basketball as some of these guys have, but, when I've talked to different coaches in this league, has it been Jamal Mosley, talking to J.B. Bickerstaff, talking to different coaches, when you talk about Jabari Smith, it is his versatility. And it's not to take anything away from the rest of the guys like Chet Holmgren. I think, when you look at, I think Paolo and Jabari Smith are probably most likely ready to play right now if you just look at kind of their basic skill set. But Chet Holmgren, his upside is scary. His upside and what he's able to do and what he possibly could do. What I like about Paolo and Chet especially is that they were playing at high-profile organizations. They were playing at Gonzaga. You're playing at Duke. So you're going to have all the eyes on you, all the national televised games. Every game that you play is a big game. I like players that play in that because it gets them ready for this NBA fire.
Yeah, and all 3 of them were number 1 during the course of the season.
Yeah.
All of them played on number 1 teams.
Yeah.
And Chet, baby Giannis, you're saying high ceiling. How do you feel about that order that Woj is reporting?
First of all, I think they're all great players in their own right and will have impacts immediately in the NBA. They're going to teams where they'll be able to contribute. As a guy who was skinny coming out of high school, coming out of college, I love Chet. I like his upside. I like the fact that he can shoot off the dribble. He has a skill set that I think translates right away. Obviously, he has to get bigger. He has to get in the weight room, and he will. I think most NBA ready is Paolo Banchero. I think looking at his body, his size, he works out with Chris Brickley here in the city, and he was getting a workout in last night at 11:45 p.m. I text Brick, and I said, hey, I'll be there in the morning. He said, I just worked out Paolo. He's aggressive. He's athletic. He cares. He wants to win, and I think he'll be an immediate impact player in Houston right away. I think his skill set translates. But you talked about Jabari Smith's shooting ability. As a guy who's played in the NBA for 9 going on 10 years, if you can shoot, you can impact the game right away. Obviously, he'll improve his handle, he'll improve his playmaking, but he can defend, he can shoot, he can guard multiple positions. So I think it's Jabari Smith who's a clear #1 favorite tonight in this draft.
You see, RJ, he got a workout in this morning and was still on time.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Well, Zach, your thoughts? Do you feel like this is the right order?
It's going to be fascinating in 10 years to look back at these three and what the order should have been. I think it has a chance to be a win-win-win for all three teams. Orlando is under some pressure to make a leap next season. Not necessarily a big leap, but after all this rebuilding, to make some progress in the win column. And I think they've determined if they take Smith, he, because of his shooting, as Jay mentioned, is the most ready to step on the floor and play big minutes right now. OKC, if it's Holmgren, they take the shot at the highest ceiling guy among these three, at least in my opinion. And Banchero, he may end up being the best all-around player of these three. Offensively, he can do everything. He's going to be a dynamic fit with Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün. I think it could be a win-win-win. It'll just be fascinating to see who ends up being the best guy out of these three 10 years from now.
Yeah, and this seems to be the conversation leading up to the draft, that the first three players on the board look to be pretty set in stone, and specifically in that order. So the real draft starts at 4, where Jaden Ivey is currently projected to go to the Sacramento Kings, followed by Keegan Murray at 5. So, Jay, is Ivey clearly the next best available player on the board in your mind?
He is for me. I think Jaden Ivey out of Purdue is kind of a combination. He's got the speed and explosiveness of a Ja Morant. He's got the length of like a Dwayne Wade. That's his size comparison. He's not as strong as Wade was coming out of Marquette, at least not yet. But he's a blur in transition. Incredible speed, athleticism. He's the best athlete in this draft, in my view. Can get to the basket, finish above the rim. He can shoot it. He's not a knockdown shooter, but he makes threes and makes perimeter shots. I think the step for him to be a great player in the NBA is he's going to have to improve his defensive intensity. He's got to impact the game on the defensive end, not just the offensive end.
I mean, Zach, how far of a gap do you feel Jaden is from the top three guys who seem to be in the conversation for the most part?
The draft nicks that I know say he's actually pretty close to that group. There's a lot of people in the league that are super high on Jaden Ivey. And look, I think this is going to go down to the wire, on the clock maybe at the draft. It's no secret that the Kings have dangled this pick out there in search of a veteran player. John Collins has been mentioned. The issue with that is I don't think that's fair value for the 4th pick. This is a really valuable pick. And going down through the draft, you can look at the Knicks at 11, the Pacers at 6, the Wizards at 10. It's hard to find a trade back where it's not too far back in the draft where the Kings will feel like, man, we really went far back, and a veteran player that is actually worth that pick. John Collins is a really good player. I think you got to start throwing other pieces in there, but I think the Kings are sitting in the catbird seat in a lot of ways, thinking, do Fox and Ivey fit? Do we take another guard for what feels like the 7th straight year in Sacramento, a guard who didn't give his medicals to the Kings because he didn't seem so. I think he said it wouldn't be the worst option. That could be the slogan for the Kings. Not the worst option.
That can't be their.
But I think they'll take it to the wire, seeing what kind of packages they can get.
But CJ, I just saw your reaction to the fact that Jaden didn't give his medicals to Sacramento or work out for the Kings. What do you make of that strategy?
I think it's up to his representation. Representation matters, and I think looking at what they're trying to accomplish, they're probably trying to push him to another market. So I think you have control over your player up until he's drafted.
And by the way, I'm totally pro that. Exercise whatever power you've got, man. This is as you guys know, you don't have a choice really. You get picked. This is where you're going to spend the first 7 years of your career. Exercise what power you got.
And it's not the first time players have done that.
No, so
that happens all the time, and teams draft them anyway.
I didn't send my medicals to everyone.
Oh yeah, my worst workout was for the Nets. Worst workout by far was it. We won't get into that why, but no. The one thing that I want to talk about is that when you look at an organization like the Sacramento Kings, this is their fault. This is no one else's fault. For a player that might be like questionable about whether or not they want to go there, when you start looking at the career arc of a lot of players that have either been drafted or been there. Now look, Tyrese Halliburton, he was, him and De'Aaron Fox. Tyrese Halliburton was a steal of the draft 2 years ago, and then they just shipped him away for an all-star, so you understand that. Marvin Bagley did not meet expectations, and about, that where you had Luka and you had Trey and all those guys right after that. So Davion Mitchell was elite because he was a great defender. That's what they wanted to add to their lineup. So when you look at this and you're just like, do I want to play for an organization that has had, 10 coaches in the last 15 years, that hasn't made the postseason in 15 years? Let's not send our information there, and let's see if we can get someplace else.
I want to go on the record saying that I worked out for the Sacramento Kings twice. They called back after the first workout. They wanted to see me again, and I was actually supposed to go to the Kings at 7. Funny story for you, full disclosure. I talked to Dane. I think he was also promised by the Sacramento Kings and was later not drafted by the Kings and is now a Portland
Wait,
Trailblazer
did they pass up on you?
I was available. They took Ben McLemore.
So, okay. So, again, the Sacramento Kings will be on the clock starting
But
now.
this is a new Kings regime. Let's be clear.
Mike Brown. Shout out Mike Brown.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Shout
Because
out Mike Brown.
the Kings have watched stars, as you keep saying, go the pick after theirs 3 times in recent years, starting with Klay Thompson.
No.
Yes, this is the fact.
No, this is
Kurt,
not.
you
No,
can
this
hit
is
it.
mean.
No, it's not. How is this mean? These are facts. Going 11th in 2011 after the Kings acquired the 10th pick to select Jimmer Fredette. The very next year, the Kings chose Thomas Robinson, the pick before Dame, as you talked about, CJ. And, of course, in 2018, they held the number 2 overall pick, chose Marvin Bagley III.
They could have had Fredette.
Shout out to my guy, Thomas
Klay
Robinson.
Thompson.
That's my guy, T-Rob. He
good
should be in the league right
This
now.
is violence. We've chosen violence.
No,
against the
they
Kings
have chosen
today.
violence. They have chosen violence.
As he said.
They have chosen violence.
Still to come on NBA Today, the countdown is on. Which teams will be most active with the draft only a few hours away? We play a little rumor roundup. And speaking of players on the move, what does the acquisition of Jeremy Grant mean for Portland? Who better than